Have you ever felt the quiet certainty that the smallest moments can hold the greatest changes, as if the world sometimes saves its most important secrets for the softest hours, waiting for someone patient enough to notice them? Tonight, I invite you to enter a world shaped not by grand battles or towering monuments, but by a single observation made in the stillness of a humble laboratory. Close your eyes and let your breath fall into a slow rhythm as we drift toward the early years of the 20th century, a time when medicine was still learning how to comfort the suffering and protect the fragile. The night air around you feels cool and steady, carrying faint scents of paper, ink, and freshly boiled water that linger in old hospitals and research rooms. With each breath, imagine stepping into a gentler era, one where knowledge moves like a soft current beneath the surface of daily life. Picture yourself standing in a quiet London street as evening settles over the city. The lamps glow with a muted golden halo, their light softened by a thin mist that gathers along the cobblestones. Horses pass at a slow pace, hooves tapping a calm rhythm against the stone, while the distant chime of a church clock echoes through the cool air. Behind tall brick buildings, windows reveal warm scenes of life. A doctor reading by lamplight, a nurse folding fresh linens, a family sharing a simple meal. You can almost feel the texture of the era in the fabric of the coats people wear, in the rough wooden frames of old doors, and in the quiet determination that lives in those who care for the sick. Before antibiotics, even small fevers carried heavy risks, but people moved forward with hope, trusting that knowledge would eventually open another path. Follow the glow of a single window on the upper floor of a modest hospital building. Inside, the corridors are peaceful at this late hour. Footsteps fade down distant hallways, leaving only the soft rustle of papers and the faint hum of a gas lamp burning steadily by the wall. Rooms breathe with the warm scent of soap, boiled instruments, and freshly cleaned floors, while the muted creak of wooden doors reminds you of the many hands that have passed through here. Somewhere nearby, a weary nurse adjusts a patient's blanket, offering comfort with a gentle touch. Elsewhere, the faint metallic tap of a pen against a glass dish signals the slow, patient work of someone deep in thought, unaware that history is drawing close. Now step inside the laboratory where our story begins. The room feels cool, filled with the faint, familiar scent of old books and chemical solutions. Shelves hold rows of bottles, some labeled in neat handwriting, others bearing worn tags from years of experiments. A gentle haze of lamplight rests over the benches, illuminating the subtle imperfections in the wooden surface and the delicate patterns of dust that settle during quiet evenings. Instruments lie arranged with care, pipettes that gleam softly, steel tools that reflect the warm glow, and stacks of glass plates waiting to be studied. In this world of muted colors and careful order, every sound feels meaningful. The soft scratch of a pen, the clink of glass touching glass, the faint breath of air crossing the room as someone walks past. It is here, in this gentle space of observation and patience, that the seeds of a medical revolution rest unnoticed. As you stand in this quiet laboratory, imagine the slow rhythm of the world outside. The passing of hours, marked only by the settling of dust and the cooling of tea left beside a notebook. The atmosphere encourages reflection, inviting you to consider how the greatest changes often begin in silence. There is no urgency here, only the soft presence of curiosity. Somewhere on a nearby bench, a stack of Petri dishes sits cooling after being prepared earlier in the day. Their surfaces glisten faintly beneath the lamplight. Perfectly ordinary, yet on the verge of becoming extraordinary. In this peaceful environment, the mind has room to wander, to notice details that might otherwise be overlooked, to catch glimpses of meaning in accidents and As we begin this journey into the discovery of penicillin, allow yourself to settle into the slow heartbeat of this place. Feel the texture of the wooden bench beneath your fingertips, the calm weight of the air against your skin, and the gentle warmth of the lamp nearby. With each breath, let your thoughts glide toward the quiet men and women who worked in rooms like this, seeking answers without knowing how profoundly their efforts would shape the world. Tonight, we will walk beside them, moving at the pace of a whisper, following the small steps that led to one of the most important moments in medical history. If you wish, you can share where in the world or where in time you are listening from, and I will read it as part of this gentle journey. If you would like to return for another night of stories told softly, you are welcome to follow the channel and drift with me again. Now, let your mind slow, your breath deepen, and your senses settle as we open the door to a world on the edge of discovery. Our story begins not with the breakthrough itself, but with the world that quietly awaited its arrival. Before the discovery of penicillin reshaped the destiny of medicine, the world moved through its days with a quiet vulnerability that touched nearly every home. Illnesses that today seem small and easily treated carried a weight that lingered like a slow-moving shadow. A simple scratch on a hand could become a source of deep worry. A cough that persisted through the night could spread fear through a household, each sound reminding families of how fragile life could be. Step into this earlier time and feel the texture of its daily rhythms. Streets were alive with the clatter of horse-drawn carts and the murmur of people moving with purpose. Yet beneath the liveliness was a constant awareness that health was never guaranteed. In hospitals, doctors did their best with the knowledge they had, relying on antiseptics, careful observation, and hope. The walls carried the scent of carbolic acid and warmed linen, while the gentle creak of wooden floors echoed the movements of patients seeking rest. Life felt precious, held together not by certainty, but by a quiet, steady resilience. Walk with me into one of those hospitals at the dawn of the 20th century. The corridor is dimly lit, illuminated by lamps whose glass chimneys glow with a soft amber tone. Their flames flutter slightly whenever someone passes, casting shifting patterns along the walls. You can hear the delicate symphony of sounds that make up the night shift. Nurses move carefully, their shoes whispering against the polished floors. A distant door opens with a muted click, followed by the gentle swish of fabric as a physician approaches a bedside. The air is warm but not stifling, infused with the comforting scent of fresh soap used to wipe down surfaces at the end of the day. You might catch the faint aroma of tea steeping in a pot left nearby, a small comfort for tired staff who will not rest until morning. Even in these quiet hours, the building hums with life, shaped by the breath of every patient resting behind the gently closed doors. In one room, the sunlight from the earlier afternoon still lingers in the wooden frames of the windows, holding on to the warmth of the day. The bed linens are neatly folded, their crisp texture offering a sense of order in a world full of uncertainty. A child lies under a soft blanket, cheeks flushed with fever, watched over by a parent whose eyes show a mix of fear and tenderness. Nearby, a doctor checks a chart, his brow slightly furrowed as he measures the child's breathing. No antibiotics exist, yet to ease the inflammation. No simple pill to quiet the infection. Treatment is a careful balance of rest, nourishment, and the hope that the body will find its way back to strength. The mother gently wipes the child's forehead with a damp cloth, humming a quiet melody that fills the room with a sense of closeness. Every gesture here is a reminder of how deeply people relied on patience and compassion when medicine reached its limits. Move down the hallway and pause near a ward filled with adults recovering from wounds or illnesses that today would be treated in a matter of days. A man sits upright in his bed, gazing through the large window that overlooks the courtyard. His injury, caused by a minor accident at work, has become inflamed. Despite careful cleaning, the redness spreads slowly, and his arm feels warm to the touch. The nurse who tends to him unwraps the bandage with delicate care, her movements practiced and steady. She examines the wound with a thoughtful expression, aware that the next few days will be crucial. Every detail of the scene is gentle but charged with quiet tension. The rustle of the fresh gauze, the soft exhale of the patient as the air meets the tender skin, the distant echo of footsteps outside the ward. These sounds are the heartbeat of a world waiting for a cure it does not yet know it needs. Beyond the hospital walls, the city embraces its own steady rhythm. London is a tapestry of misty mornings and cool evenings, of markets filled with the scent of fresh bread and coal fires warming the early hours. People move through their routines with purpose, yet beneath their daily conversations lies a shared awareness of the fragility of health. Families check on neighbors after bouts of fever, offering broth and warm blankets. Children play in narrow streets, their laughter bright but sometimes interrupted by the fatigue of an unshakable cough. Workers in factories wipe sweat from their brows, careful to avoid cuts and scrapes that might become dangerous if not treated quickly. The world feels full of movement and promise, but also marked by an invisible presence that hovers over every household. This presence is illness in its many forms, always waiting, always reminding people of how precious every moment of well-being truly is. As night settles again over the city, lamps glow against the damp air, their light pooling gently onto the sidewalks. Families gather inside small homes where fireplaces crackle softly, filling rooms with warmth. Dinner plates are cleared, stories are exchanged, and children drift into sleep under heavy quilts sewn by hand. Yet even in this peaceful glow, a cough from the next room or a fever rising unexpectedly can turn the calm into concern. Life moves with a kind of poised patience. People accept what they cannot yet change, trusting that someday, someone will uncover a deeper understanding of the unseen world that causes sickness. They do not know that the answer is already taking shape, not in a grand hall or within the pages of a prestigious book, but in the quiet corners of a laboratory where curiosity and chance are slowly drawing closer to one another. This is the world before penicillin, a world held together by care, perseverance, and the hope that tomorrow might bring a new light. As you breathe softly and let your thoughts settle, imagine the texture of these days, the gentle sounds in the corridors, the faces lit by lamplight, and the calm resilience of those who lived through uncertainty with grace. Our journey moves forward from here, into the life of a man whose quiet observations would change this fragile world forever. Let your mind remain in this soft glow as we step into the next chapter. In the quiet hum of early 20th century London, a subtle change begins to gather, not in the bustling markets or the crowded streets, but in the gentle rhythm of the city's intellectual life. Each morning, as the fog lifts slowly from the rooftops, a soft glow settles over the brick facades and narrow lanes. People start their day wrapped in coats and scarves, their breaths curling into the cool air as they walk toward factories, shops, or schools. Street vendors arrange their wares with practiced hands, and the steady clop of horses draws echoes along the damp pavement. Yet beneath all these familiar movements lies an unspoken yearning, a quiet hope that someone, somewhere, might find a way to ease the burdens that sickness leaves behind. The air feels laden with possibility, like a whisper that has not yet formed into words, waiting patiently for the right listener. Amid this gentle backdrop, a solitary figure makes his way through the hazy morning streets. Alexander Fleming, a man of quiet habits and steady curiosity, walks with the unhurried pace of someone who observes more than he speaks. His shoes tap softly against the pavement, each step measured and thoughtful. The crisp air sharpens his senses, carrying with it the scent of damp stone, coal smoke drifting from chimneys, and the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby shop. Fleming moves through the world with a calm presence, noticing the small details, the way light filters through the mist, the slight tilt of a street lamp, the soft chatter of early pedestrians. To most, these moments pass without a second thought, but to him, they form a tapestry of patterns and possibilities that shape his understanding of the world. As he approaches the laboratory where he spends most of his days, the building seems to rise gently out of the fog, its windows catching the faint morning light. Inside, the atmosphere is far from grand. The rooms are modest and slightly cluttered, filled with stacks of papers, glass jars, and tools that hint at ongoing experiments. Yet there is a comforting sense of familiarity in the worn wooden benches and the faint smell of chemicals lingering in the air. Fleming places his coat on a hook near the door, his fingers brushing against the fabric with a quiet reverence for routine. His movements are simple but precise, shaped by years of steady practice. He steps into the space as though entering a sanctuary, ready to spend hours surrounded by the soft clink of glass and the muted hum of ideas gently forming in his mind. Fleming's presence in the laboratory feels deeply human. He is not a grand or dramatic figure, but rather a man with an attentive gaze and a patient spirit. His curiosity flows like a calm river beneath his outward composure, guiding his attention toward the subtle and the overlooked. He works with a kind of meditative focus, handling Petri dishes, preparing cultures, and making notes with handwriting that carries a rhythm of its own. The tools around him reflect the modesty of the era. Worn notebooks filled with observations, small metal instruments resting in shallow trays, and glass plates stacked with careful intention. The room is far from silent. There is the faint rustling of papers, the soft scrape of a stool on the floor, and the distant murmur of other scientists moving through adjoining rooms. Together, these sounds weave a gentle environment in which ideas quietly gather strength. Outside the laboratory, London continues to move at its steady pace, unaware of the slow, transformative work happening within these walls. Carriages pass along the street, their wheels splashing through shallow puddles left by the morning fog. Children walk hand in hand toward school, their laughter carrying through the chilled air. In small cafes, people warm their hands around cups of tea while discussing the latest news. These everyday scenes might seem ordinary, but for Fleming, they provide a steady rhythm that mirrors the internal movement of his thoughts. He is a man shaped not by grandeur, but by the quiet persistence of someone who believes that answers often hide in the smallest corners of the world. As the day unfolds, Fleming settles deeper into his work. He studies cultures under the gentle glow of the lamp, observing how bacteria spread, how they react, and how they change with time. Each observation is a thread that ties him more closely to the mysteries he seeks to understand. His desk is scattered with notes and sketches, the edges of the pages slightly worn from constant handling. He pauses occasionally, resting his fingertips on the smooth surface of the bench as he reflects on what he has seen. There is no rush in his movements, only the calm momentum of curiosity guiding him forward. The world outside may be busy and loud, but here, time stretches into long, thoughtful hours that allow discoveries to take root in silence. Toward the late afternoon, the golden light from the high windows softens, settling over the laboratory in warm hues that make the air seem almost still. Fleming stands by the window for a moment, watching as the city changes its tone with the approaching evening. Smoke drifts upward from chimneys, blending into the deepening sky. Somewhere in the distance, someone plays a quiet melody on a violin, its notes floating over the rooftops. These subtle sounds and shifting colors create a sense of calm reflection, encouraging the mind to drift gently between thought and observation. Fleming breathes deeply, appreciating the serenity of the moment, before returning to his workbench, where the next step awaits him. In these quiet hours, the whispers of change become almost audible, though no one yet understands what they signify. The world continues its steady movement. Unaware of the discovery that slowly approaches, Fleming's calm persistence, his gentle attention to detail, and his willingness to let curiosity guide him will soon converge into a moment that feels almost accidental. But for now, the air remains still, filled with the soft rustle of papers and the steady rhythm of breath. This is the beginning of a journey not marked by dramatic scenes, but by gentle awareness and patient observation. As night settles over London, let your thoughts rest in this serene space where science and silence intertwine. From here, we will follow the quiet path that leads to the first steps forward. Morning arrives gently in London, spreading a pale glow across the laboratory windows, as Alexander Fleming begins another day shaped by small rituals and quiet focus. The soft light settles on the benches where rows of glass plates wait, their smooth surfaces catching the faint shimmer of dawn. The air inside the lab still carries a trace of coolness from the night, mingling with the familiar scent of chemicals and old paper. Fleming moves through the room with a calm sense of purpose, his steps neither hurried nor hesitant. He sets a kettle to warm, the gentle hiss of steam offering a comforting reminder that even in a place dedicated to scientific precision, simple human rituals still anchor the day. As he waits, he reviews his notes from the day before, each line a careful reflection of the slow progress that defines his work. These early hours hold a quiet magic, inviting him to sink fully into the rhythm of study and curiosity. Once the day fully settles into place, Fleming begins preparing new cultures, a task that requires both precision and patience. He gathers his materials, feeling the smooth, cool surfaces of glass plates beneath his fingertips. The textures of the lab define the moment, the faint clink of tools resting on metal trays, the soft rustle of paper as he turns a page, the steady bubbling of a small burner heating a solution. Each step in the process feels deliberate, as if the world has slowed to allow him the clarity needed for even the simplest actions. He measures, pours, and arranges with a practiced fluidity, his movements almost meditative. In this quiet environment, the act of preparing a plate becomes more than a scientific step. It becomes a reflection of the care and attention he brings to each day, a recognition that every detail matters in ways that may only reveal themselves much later. As the cultures begin to develop, Fleming leans closer to observe the patterns forming before his eyes. Tiny colonies of bacteria spread in delicate shapes, their pale forms barely visible against the translucent surface beneath them. He studies the edges of each growth, noting the subtle differences in shape and texture, the way some colonies expand quickly while others maintain a reluctant stillness. These observations demand patience, requiring long minutes of quiet concentration. Yet Fleming does not rush. He allows his thoughts to move at the same pace as the slow expansion of the cultures, letting his mind drift gently between what he sees and what he wonders. Outside the windows, the hum of the city rises with the late morning hours. But in this room, time continues to stretch like soft fabric, unhurried and generous. Throughout the day, Fleming rises from his bench at intervals, stepping over to a tall window that overlooks the street below. The view provides a gentle balance to the precision of his work. He watches figures move with steady determination along the pavement, their coats brushing against the chill air. A vendor pushing a cart stops to adjust his load, while a woman with a basket of vegetables pauses to greet a neighbor. The simplicity of their movements brings a grounding sense of calm, reminding Fleming that life continues outside the narrow lines of the laboratory. These pauses allow his mind to rest, giving space for new ideas to drift softly into focus. The contrast between the intricate patterns of bacteria and the flow of life on the street creates a quiet harmony that inspires him to return to his work with renewed clarity. Back at his bench, he makes careful drawings in his notebook, capturing the shape and structure of each culture in delicate pencil lines. His sketches resemble small landscapes seen from above, each one revealing the subtle artistry hidden within the natural world. The act of drawing steadies him, connecting his observations to the physical world through gentle strokes. The lamp beside him casts a warm glow over the pages, illuminating the faint ridges of the paper and the slight sheen of the graphite. With every mark, Fleming deepens his understanding of the organisms he studies, even though their behavior often defies simple explanation. Science, for him, is not merely a pursuit of answers, but a sustained conversation with the unseen forces shaping life. Each sketch becomes a whispered exchange, a moment of quiet acknowledgement between observer and subject. As afternoon transitions to early evening, the laboratory takes on a softer atmosphere. The light through the windows becomes warmer, brushing the benches with shades of amber that shimmer faintly on metal instruments. Fleming tidies his workspace, placing each tool in its familiar spot, wiping surfaces with steady hands, and preparing for tomorrow's continuation. These small gestures echo his philosophy. Progress begins with consistency, with committing to each careful step even when the outcome remains hidden. A sense of peaceful anticipation fills the room, the kind that accompanies a day spent fully immersed in curiosity. The science may not offer grand revelations today, yet each movement, each observation, each note brings him a small step closer to something unknown. As the evening deepens and the sky outside settles into a muted blue, Fleming closes his notebook and takes one final walk around the lab. He checks the cultures resting on the shelves, ensuring they have everything they need for the night ahead. The quiet hum of the building seems to breathe around him, a gentle reminder that discovery often grows in these moments when no one is looking. He places his coat over his arm and turns down the lamp, leaving the room in a serene half-light. The plates will rest undisturbed until morning, continuing their slow transformation. Fleming steps out into the calm night, unaware that these small steps will soon lead him toward a moment that feels accidental, yet carries the weight of countless lives. This is the beginning of his journey, forward a path formed, not by sudden breakthroughs, but by the gentle persistence of a man who simply paid attention. As you let your thoughts drift with him into the quiet streets, prepare to follow his footsteps into the world in motion that surrounds his work. While Fleming continues his quiet work inside the modest walls of his laboratory, the world beyond those windows moves with a steady, restless energy. London, in these early years of the 20th century, breathes like a living organism, its streets pulsing with life from dawn until long after nightfall. Factories hum with the rhythm of machines, their tall chimneys exhaling pale streams of smoke into the cool air. Markets awaken early, filled with the clatter of crates, the soft murmur of bargaining voices, and the fragrance of bread still warm from the ovens. At the docks, ships glide in and out, their ropes creaking softly as workers unload crates stamped with distant names. Everywhere, life unfolds with a sense of momentum, as if the city itself is forever leaning forward, eager to shape the future. And yet, within this movement, illness continues to cast a long, quiet shadow, one that influences every decision and every whispered prayer. Inside the hospitals, the world in motion feels even more delicate. Corridors echo with the cautious steps of nurses who move gently from room to room, adjusting pillows, checking pulses, and soothing the anxious. Doctors in worn coats gather around bedsides, their voices low and steady as they discuss symptoms that often have no certain cure. The soft glow from wall lamps casts warm halos onto the faces of patients, illuminating eyes filled with both hope and worry. There is a rhythm to the hospital's movements. The soft rustle of blankets being lifted, the faint clink of metal bowls being set on wooden tables, the creak of doors opening and closing with respectful restraint. Every sound, every gesture reflects a delicate balance between progress and fragility. The world is advancing, yet medicine still struggles against unseen forces that move faster than knowledge can chase. Beyond the hospital wards, families continue their daily routines with an underlying awareness of how vulnerable health can be. Mothers keep warm cloths ready for sudden fevers. Fathers examine even the smallest cuts with quiet concern. Neighbors check on one another with gentle knocks on doors that echo down narrow hallways. Children, resilient and curious, run through the streets with laughter that rings brightly against the gray walls. But even their play is shadowed by the common illnesses of the time. A scraped knee or a cough carries more uncertainty than it should. Communities share stories of those who healed and those who did not, creating a tapestry of memory woven into every household. These conversations float softly between families, shaping their understanding of the world and the invisible dangers moving within it. In scientific circles, the atmosphere is equally charged with quiet tension. Researchers exchange letters filled with cautious excitement about new theories, while others debate the limits of what can be understood with the tools available. Laboratories across Europe and America buzz with the hopeful energy of discovery. Yet many breakthroughs remain just out of reach. Glass bottles filled with various solutions line shelves in countless rooms, while long benches hold tools arranged with the precise care of dedicated hands. Scientists gather for evening discussions, leaning over tables as they reflect on the mysteries of bacteria, infection, and healing. These conversations ripple outward, touching the scientific community like a soft current of anticipation. But even as new ideas circulate, no one has yet stumbled upon the quiet revolution waiting in a forgotten corner of Fleming's own workspace. Meanwhile, the city's rhythm continues, carrying with it the emotional weight of a society poised between old ways and new possibilities. Electric lights glow alongside gas lamps, hinting at a future not yet fully embraced. Telephones begin to appear in some homes, their bells ringing with a metallic clarity that surprises those who hear it for the first time. Newspapers deliver stories of technological marvels, new discoveries, and distant conflicts, each headline reflecting the world's accelerated movement toward modernity. Train whistles echo across the river, their long, steady notes blending with the deep chime of church bells marking the hour. The world is shifting, stretching, growing, yet still held back by the fundamental limitations of medicine that make each day feel both promising and precarious. Amid this vast tapestry of movement, Fleming's small laboratory remains a quiet island of stillness. While the rest of the city presses forward with ambition and energy, he continues his methodical work, unaware that his quiet persistence is quietly harmonizing with the world's larger rhythm. His observations, though small and incremental, fit into a much wider story. Every culture he prepares, every plate he studies, and every note he writes is a thread woven into the future that Lunanon the world does not yet realize is approaching. The world around him is in motion, and though the motion is not yet directed toward discovery, it gently nudges him closer to the moment when chance and observation will meet. As night settles over the city again, the movement outside slows into a softer rhythm. Lamps glow in windows where families gather, sharing stories before sleep. A carriage passes slowly through the street, its wheels whispering against the cobblestones. Farther away, the faint foghorn of a ship drifts across the river like a distant lament. London rests, but even in rest, it moves, breathing steadily beneath the starless sky. In Fleming's laboratory, the quiet deepens, embracing the cultures left to grow, the papers spread across the bench, and the lingering warmth of his earlier work. Within this calm, the world in motion continues its steady push toward a discovery that will eventually slow suffering, quiet fears, and reshape the delicate balance between illness and healing. For now, the journey continues gently, guiding us toward the first shadows of conflict and determination. Inside the laboratory where Fleming spends most of his days, The calm atmosphere often hides a delicate tension that grows quietly beneath the surface. The work demands patience, yet his results are irregular and unpredictable, shifting like shadows on a wall. Some cultures flourish in ways he expects, while others behave inconsistently, creating patterns that challenge his understanding. Fleming leans over the plates, studying them with steady eyes that reflect both curiosity and fatigue. He knows the limits of what he can control. The organisms before him move according to their own nature, expanding and altering in ways that defy simple explanation. These quiet conflicts between what he hopes to see and what actually unfolds become a familiar part of his routine. Yet he never greets them with frustration. Instead, he greets them with a kind of gentle perseverance, acknowledging that progress often grows from what first appears to be error. Some days feel heavier than others, as if the weight of unanswered questions settles across the laboratory like a thin veil of dust. Fleming moves between his bench and the window, seeking clarity in the shifting light of the day. He takes careful notes, crossing out lines that prove imprecise, rewriting them with a slow determination that reveals as much about his mindset as it does about his observations. The challenges he faces are subtle but constant. Cultures become contaminated without obvious cause. Petri dishes dry too quickly or cloud too soon. Solutions fail to behave as expected. These moments require a quiet courage, the kind that persists even when progress is invisible. Fleming breathes deeply, feeling the cool air of the room calm the rising doubts. He returns to his bench each time with renewed care, adjusting his methods, refining his steps, and trusting that the gentle rhythm of repetition will eventually reveal something meaningful. Outside the laboratory, the world continues to confront illness with methods that feel increasingly inadequate. Doctors tend to patients with limited tools, offering comfort more often than cure. The knowledge that so many infections remain untreatable weighs heavily on the medical community, creating an atmosphere of collective uncertainty. News spreads between hospitals and clinics of patients who deteriorate despite every effort, leaving caregivers with a lingering sense of helplessness. These quiet frustrations echo through conversations whispered in hallways, exchanged in letters, or spoken in the soft lamplight of late-night consultations. Even those who work with unwavering compassion feel the unspoken question that follows them through every ward. How much longer must the world wait for a breakthrough that feels both necessary and impossibly distant? Fleming, too, senses this larger tension. Although he rarely expresses his thoughts aloud, he carries an awareness of the medical challenges surrounding him. He sees patients in nearby wards whose conditions deteriorate despite constant care, and he hears the subdued voices of nurses who quietly worry about those who do not respond to treatment. These experiences become a silent motivation. They remind him of the real purpose behind his work, the human lives that rest beyond the glass plates and microscopes. Even on days when his cultures refuse to behave, or when contamination spreads through his dishes like a quiet tide, he keeps moving forward. His perseverance is not fueled by ego or ambition, but by a deep sense of responsibility and understanding that each small failure offers a lesson that might lead, someday, to something like the laboratory itself becomes a vessel for these emotions. In the soft glow of the afternoon light, the dust floating gently in the air seems to carry the weight of unanswered questions. The air smells faintly of alcohol and ink, familiar scents that soothe the mind even as they remind Fleming of the challenges before him. On his desk lies a small stack of plates he has already examined today, each one representing hours of meticulous effort. He studies them once more, his gaze lingering on the unexpected patterns etched across their surfaces. Some reveal clear growth. Others contain patches where the bacteria have failed to thrive. These variations may frustrate lesser minds, but Fleming views them with cautious curiosity. He understands that science rarely moves in straight lines. It drifts, shifts, and sometimes circles back on itself before revealing its deeper truths. In the quiet evenings, after the city's noise softens and the corridors fall still, Fleming continues to tidy the lab, preparing it for another day. He arranges his tools with care, washes glassware under the dim light, and sweeps small traces of debris from the benches. These tasks, though simple, are filled with purpose. They ground him when his thoughts become tangled, reminding him that progress often begins in these small acts of order. The world outside may feel uncertain, but within this modest room, he finds a sense of calm through discipline. The gentle scrape of a brush against glass, the warm water flowing over his hands. The steady clink of dishes being set to dry. Each sound forms a soft rhythm that soothes the mind and allows doubt to settle quietly at the edges. Yet even in these calm moments, Fleming cannot escape the subtle conflict within himself. He wonders if his work will ever lead somewhere meaningful, or if the hours he pours into each plate will fade into obscurity. He knows he is not alone in this uncertainty. Many scientists feel the same weight, the same question lingering at the back of their thoughts. But Fleming's courage lies in his willingness to continue, despite not knowing. He places his trust in the process, and the gentle persistence that has guided him for years. He believes that every new plate, every new culture, every new observation holds a possibility, even if that possibility remains hidden for now. As the night deepens and the room grows still, Fleming finally places his notebook beside the lamp and takes one last look at the shelves where his cultures rest. The faint glow of the lamp reflects on the glass, creating small halos of light that shimmer softly in the quiet air. He breathes slowly, letting the fatigue of the day settle into his shoulders, and buttons his coat before stepping toward the door. The laboratory feels peaceful behind him, holding within its silence the unresolved questions, the gentle struggles, and the quiet courage that define this chapter of his journey. Tonight, the world remains unchanged. Illness continues to challenge every home and every hospital, and Fleming continues to face frustrations that seem endless. But beneath the surface of these small conflicts, something is shifting. The quiet courage that carries him forward is beginning to align with events that will soon converge in the shadows of the laboratory. As we move into the next chapter, the turning point draws near, waiting patiently in a forgotten corner of the room. In the gentle stillness of late summer, the laboratory feels unusually quiet, as though the air itself is holding its breath. Fleming has been away for a short holiday, leaving his work to rest in the dim corners of the room, untouched and forgotten for days. When he returns, the morning light enters through the tall windows in muted, golden layers, settling softly on the benches where stacks of Petri dishes wait like small, silent witnesses. Dust has gathered lightly on the surfaces. Papers lie exactly where he left them, edges curled slightly from the warm, humid days that passed in his absence. The laboratory greets him with the familiar scent of old wood, lingering chemicals, and the faint trace of sunlight warming the room. There is no excitement in the air, no indication that anything extraordinary has occurred. Everything feels ordinary, still, and comfortably unchanged. Fleming removes his coat with an unhurried motion, placing it beside the door where it always hangs. He moves toward his bench with the quiet expectation of resuming his routine. He has done this countless times, returning after time away, checking his cultures, making notes, washing what needs to be cleaned, preparing new plates. This morning feels no different. He lifts the lids of each dish one by one, examining their contents with a steady, practiced gaze. Some plates show the familiar haze of bacterial growth, spreading like pale, delicate clouds across the gel. Others are overgrown or contaminated, the kind of results he has seen so many times before. He turns each dish in his hands, holding it up to catch the morning light as he evaluates what he must keep and what he must discard. The rhythm feels ordinary, almost soothing in its predictability. And then, in the midst of this calm routine, something gently interrupts the flow. Fleming opens a plate he had set aside weeks earlier, one he barely remembers preparing. His eyes fall upon a small, peculiar pattern on its surface. At first, it seems like nothing more than a patch of unexpected clarity among the cloudy bacterial growth. He holds the dish a little closer, letting the light touch it more directly. A ring of emptiness surrounds a faint, soft mound of pale blue-green mold. The bacteria that should have grown densely around it have instead retreated, leaving a clear halo where nothing thrives. The sight is subtle, easy to overlook, something another scientist might have tossed aside without a second glance. But Fleming pauses. His breath slows as he studies the delicate boundary, the clean line where life gives way to absence. Something about this silent interaction calls to him. He turns to the plate again, examining it from every angle, his curiosity sharpening with each passing second. The mold itself is unremarkable, the kind of growth that appears when a dish is left too long or prepared in haste. It is familiar, even mundane, but the space around it, this quiet circle of inhibition, carries a presence that feels both gentle and extraordinary. The bacteria seem to have retreated as if responding to an unseen whisper, creating a pattern that does not match the usual behavior Fleming knows so well. He feels a flicker of recognition, not of certainty, but of possibility. Something in this interaction, this simple dance between mold and microbe, suggests a story he has not yet heard. Fleming places the dish on the bench, leaning closer as if trying to hear something in the silence. The room around him fades into soft blur, the usual sounds of the laboratory paper rustling in the draft, a faint dripping from a nearby tap. The distant hum of footsteps in the hall would become muted, as though the world has stepped back to give space to this moment. He studies the edge of the clear zone with slow, unwavering focus, the smoothness of the boundary, the perfect arc of the halo, the gentle transition from bacterial density to pure transparency. Everything feels deliberate, almost intentional. The mold is doing something, influencing something, quietly reshaping the life around it in a way he has never seen before. A gentle excitement stirs in his chest, though he keeps his demeanor calm, his expression steady. He does not leap to conclusions. His is not a spirit of impulsiveness. Instead, he approaches the moment with the same quiet curiosity that has guided him through countless days of uncertainty. He sets the plate down beside his notebook, opens a fresh page, and begins to write. The pencil glides softly across the paper, forming words that capture both his observations and his quiet wonder. He describes the mold, the shape of the inhibition zone, the behavior of the bacteria. His handwriting is steady but faintly quicker than usual, as though his thoughts are moving just a little faster than his hand can follow. He sketches a circle, shading the areas where growth has halted, his lines gentle yet precise. As he writes, Fleming becomes aware of the subtle shift in the room, a shift that exists only in his perception. The laboratory, once just a place of routine, now feels like a vessel holding a secret. The forgotten dish, left in the shadows, has opened a door he did not know he was approaching. It is not yet a discovery in the grand sense. It is not yet a cure or a breakthrough. It is simply an observation, quiet, delicate, easily dismissed, but it carries within it the potential to change everything. Fleming feels it lightly, like the first breath of wind before a storm, or the faint glow that precedes the sunrise. The moment is both fragile and profound. He closes his notebook and lifts the plate once more, holding it in the path of the afternoon light, now filtering through the window. The mold appears almost soft, its edges blending into the gel, its surface textured like a tiny forest viewed from above. The zone around it remains clear, a calm space carved out of the bacterial landscape. Fleming inhales slowly, letting the significance of the moment settle in his thoughts without rushing it. He knows this requires time. It requires patience, repetition, and a willingness to follow the quiet thread that has been placed before him. As the light shifts gently across the room, Fleming sets the plate aside with great care, as if placing a fragile object into a cradle. He does not yet know the magnitude of what he has seen. He cannot envision the millions of lives that will one day be touched by this moment, but he feels a subtle certainty forming inside him, the sense that something meaningful has begun. Something born not from grand design or intense planning, but from an accident, a pause, a forgotten dish resting in the shadows. With the room growing dimmer and the air warming with the scent of late afternoon, Fleming tidies his workspace and prepares to leave. The plate remains on the bench like a quiet spark waiting to grow into flame. As he steps toward the door, he does not rush. He carries with him a soft awareness, a knowledge that this moment, though small, has shifted the course of his work. The world outside continues as it always has, unaware that within this quiet laboratory, in the embrace of shadows and stillness, a turning point has quietly begun to unfold. The discovery has not yet been declared, but it has already taken its first breath. In the days that follow Fleming's quiet observation, the laboratory becomes a place of gentle tension and renewed purpose. The unexpected pattern on the forgotten dish lingers in his mind like a soft echo that returns each time he closes his eyes. He begins studying it with careful attention, repeating experiments, preparing new plates, and examining how the mold behaves under different conditions. Yet progress is neither smooth nor immediate. Some cultures refuse to grow the same way. Others mimic the strange clear halo but fade too quickly to study. Fleming feels the familiar tug of uncertainty, the subtle frustration that comes when answers seem to slip away just as the mind reaches for them. These losses, small but frequent, test his patience. Still, he continues, guided by a quiet resilience that has shaped his entire scientific life, the work becomes a delicate dance between hope and disappointment. Some mornings bring a hint of clarity, a plate that shows the same perfect circle of inhibition, a pattern so precise, it feels almost poetic. He examines these results under the steady glow of the lamp, his breath stilling as he traces the gentle curve where bacteria yield to the unseen influence of the mold. But just as often, the next plate will reveal nothing unusual, only the pale, familiar spread of bacterial growth, uninterrupted and ordinary. These inconsistencies challenge him, whispering doubts that settle gently around his thoughts. Yet Fleming does not yield to discouragement. Instead, he allows the lessons to guide his next steps, adjusting his methods with quiet determination and accepting that discovery rarely moves in straight lines. Outside the laboratory, the world continues to struggle with infections that refuse to bend to human will. In the nearby hospital wards, nurses tend to patients whose fevers rise despite every effort to cool them. Inflammation spreads through limbs and lungs with a silent persistence that unsettles even the most experienced physicians. The rhythmic sound of coughing echoes down long hallways, mixing with the soft footsteps of caregivers moving from bed to bed. Fleming sees these realities clearly. He observes the heavy eyes of the nurses who have tended the same patient for days without improvement, and the tender worry etched into the faces of families waiting by bedsides. These quiet scenes deepen his resolve, reminding him that each small insight gained in the laboratory could someday ease the suffering he witnesses beyond its walls. The mold itself becomes a quiet companion in his research, its pale green surface almost soothing to look at when examined up close. Fleming studies it with both scientific precision and a kind of gentle respect. He cultures it separately, watching its soft edges expand across the gel and delicate tendrils that seem to breathe with subtle life. Sometimes he loses entire plates to contamination, their surfaces overtaken by unintended intruders that obscure the results he seeks. Other days, the mold refuses to grow at all, leaving him staring at a dish that remains stubbornly empty. These losses carry their own kind of weight, reminding him how fragile the process truly is. But every failure holds a lesson, and every lesson leads him closer to the truth hidden within the quiet behavior of this unassuming organism. In the midst of these challenges, small moments of illumination begin to emerge. As Fleming tests the extract from the mold on various bacteria, he notices patterns that spark a deeper curiosity. Certain strains retreat consistently in its presence, creating the same graceful, clear zones he observed on the original dish. The halo grows more defined with each successful experiment, its boundaries crisp and unmistakable. Fleming feels a gentle thrill, a warmth that spreads through him as he watches the invisible force at work. It is as though the mold carries a soft but powerful message, one that reveals itself only to those patient enough to listen. These moments of clarity arrive quietly, like the slow brightening of dawn. They do not announce themselves with urgency, but they shine with a light that deepens his understanding. During long evenings, when the laboratory grows calm and shadows stretch across the benches, Fleming often pauses to reflect on the strange path that has brought him here. He thinks of the plate left uncovered, the mold that drifted in unnoticed, the chance alignment of conditions that allowed the HeLa to appear. He realizes how easily he might have missed it, how another scientist, following a stricter routine or clearing his workspace too quickly, might have discarded the dish without a second thought. This awareness brings a quiet humility. It reminds him that some discoveries are not claimed by force or brilliance, but offered by the world in subtle gestures, waiting for someone to approach them with an open mind and a patient heart. As his understanding of the mold's effect deepens, Fleming begins to feel a shift within himself. The doubts that once lingered now soften, replaced by a growing conviction that he is following a meaningful path. He still faces uncertainty, still encounters setbacks, still loses entire days of work to unforeseen complications. But beneath these challenges, a quiet confidence takes root. He knows he has witnessed something extraordinary, something fragile but profound, something that carries the potential to reshape the balance between life and illness. This awareness becomes a soft light guiding him through the darker moments of confusion. Toward the end of one long day, Fleming stands by the window, watching as the evening sun sinks behind the rooftops. The sky glows with colors that shift slowly from gold to rose to a gentle lavender. The lab is silent behind him, its benches lined with the day's results, some promising, some disappointing, All essential. He rests his hand on the windowsill, feeling the cool surface beneath his palm. For a moment, he allows himself to simply breathe, taking in the quiet beauty of the scene. The challenges of the day settle softly around him, no longer heavy, but woven into the fabric of his journey. Losses, lessons, and moments of illumination mingled together, forming the gentle progression that guides every meaningful discovery. As night descends over London, Fleming turns back to his bench and places the promising plates in a careful row, preparing for the next steps. The mold glows faintly in the lamplight, its soft color reminiscent of the early morning mist. The air feels still, as though the laboratory itself understands the significance of what is unfolding within its walls. Fleming closes his notebook, extinguishes the lamp, and steps quietly into the hallway. He carries with him not just data and observations, but a deepening sense of purpose born from the delicate interplay of setbacks and insight. This block marks the moment when patience begins to reveal its rewards, when the small spark of discovery grows into something brighter. As we move forward, the first contours of a legacy begin to take shape, emerging from the gentle glow cast by these early lessons. As the weeks pass, the quiet spark first glimpsed in the forgotten dish begins to glow with a steadier, more confident light. Fleming's experiments grow more deliberate, guided now not only by curiosity but by a subtle understanding that something extraordinary rests within the pale green mold he has come to know so well. Each morning, he enters the laboratory with a renewed sense of purpose. He steps, soft, yet grounded. The air smells of fresh broth for cultures, warm wood touched by sunlight, and the faint powdery scent of spores that cling delicately to the edges of the room. The shadows that once held uncertainty now feel gentler, as though they are making room for a new clarity to emerge. The laboratory, once a place of quiet struggle, begins to feel like a cradle for something unfolding with grace. Fleming prepares new extracts with slow, practiced movements, gently pouring liquids from flask to flask, letting droplets gather and fall with a softness that mirrors the patience he has cultivated over years of careful work. He places samples on fresh plates, each one a small, fragile world waiting to reveal its secrets. The mold's influence becomes more consistent as he refines his technique. When he lifts the lids of these plates, after hours of incubation, familiar halos begin to appear, delicate and unmistakable, spreading like soft circles of light across the bacterial landscape. He watches these zones of clarity with a sensation that feels almost like awe. There is a quiet dignity in the way the bacteria retreats from the mold's invisible presence, as if acknowledging something powerful yet gentle moving through the gel. Word of Fleming's unusual observations begins to drift softly through the scientific community, carried by letters that travel from one laboratory to another. The letters are thoughtful and measured, written in the calm tone of a man who does not seek attention but simply wishes to share what he has found. Some colleagues respond with curiosity, asking questions about his methods, the behavior of the mold, the reproducibility of the results. Others express cautious interest, their words reflecting both intrigue and hesitation. Fleming understands this balance. He knows that science advances slowly, shaped by skepticism as much as by discovery. Yet beneath the polite questions and measured exchanges, he feels the beginning of a shift, small, nearly imperceptible, but real. In the hospital nearby, early tests bring glimmers of hope. Extracts taken from the mold begin to show promise against infections that have resisted other treatments. Nurses watch with quiet amazement as wounds that once refused to heal now show signs of soft, healthy tissue forming along their edges. Fevers lessen, inflammation begins to recede. These changes do not arrive with fanfare. They unfold gradually, like the steady bloom of a flower opening in the warm light of morning. Patients, unaware of the scientific details behind their care, simply feel relief that comes as their pain diminishes. Relief that comes as their breaths deepen without struggle. Relief that comes as their strength returns. Their recovery becomes a quiet affirmation of something powerful emerging in the shadows of Fleming's laboratory. Through all of this, Fleming remains grounded in his gentle, thoughtful routines. He does not view himself as a herald of transformation, nor does he celebrate prematurely. Instead, he continues to study the mold with the same patient rhythm that has guided him from the beginning. He experiments with different temperatures, different mediums, different ways of extracting the substance that seems to silence bacteria with such ease. Some methods fail, leaving him with plates that look no different than those he observed years before. Other methods succeed, offering stronger, clearer results. These successes feel like small lights kindling in the corners of the room, illuminating the next steps with soft, steady confidence. One afternoon, as sunlight bathed the laboratory in a warm golden hue, Fleming takes a moment to step back from his bench. He gazes across the plates arranged in careful rows, each one holding evidence that something remarkable is taking shape. The mold he once viewed as a contaminant now reveals itself as a force capable of shifting the balance between life and illness. He feels a deep, quiet gratitude, not only for the discovery, but for the gentle chain of events that led him to eat the forgotten dish, the accidental exposure, the fragile halo that caught his eye. He realizes how isolated this moment could have been lost, how chance and attention have worked together to bring him to this threshold. As evening approaches, the laboratory becomes peaceful, bathed in soft amber light that fades gradually into twilight. Fleming organizes his notes, stacking pages filled with sketches, observations, and measured descriptions of the mold's effects. He places his pencil beside his notebook, its tip worn from hours of patient recording. The air feels warm and settled, carrying the quiet weight of a day where progress has been made not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, like the unfolding of a story whose meaning becomes clearer with each passing chapter. Walking home through the slowly darkening streets, Fleming notices how the city moves around him with its usual rhythm. The gentle clatter of carriage wheels, the low murmur of conversations drifting from open windows, the soft glow of lamps flickering to life, one by one. Yet something feels different within him, as though he carries a new understanding, a quiet awareness that his work is beginning to reach beyond the walls of his laboratory. He does not know yet how large its impact will become. He only knows that the mold has revealed something precious, something that holds the promise of easing suffering in ways he could not have imagined when he first lifted that forgotten dish. The legacy is not yet fully formed, but its first shape has begun to emerge. It glows softly in the hands of a man who approached his work with patience, humility, and unwavering curiosity. As we move into the next chapter, the world will begin to gather around the early signs of healing, allowing time to weave these gentle moments into a memory that will echo for generations. As the years begin to pass, Fleming's quiet discovery settles into the world with the same gentle persistence that shaped its earliest moments. The mold that once revealed its secret in silence continues to offer its gift, spreading its influence far beyond the humble walls of the laboratory where it first took root. Time, which once felt slow and hesitant in the early days of uncertainty, now moves with a deeper, more deliberate grace. In laboratories across continents, scientists begin to revisit Fleming's work with renewed interest, studying the pale green mold with tools more advanced than anything he once held. They test its properties, refine its extraction, and isolate its most potent essence. The soft halo that appeared in a forgotten dish begins to grow into something stronger, clearer, and more widely understood. It becomes not just a curiosity, but a force that quietly reshapes the practice of medicine. Hospitals that once carried the familiar weight of worry start to feel a shift in their rhythm. Infections that used to spread with relentless determination now respond to carefully prepared doses, derived from the mold's mysterious substance. Wounds that once lingered for weeks begin to heal with an ease that astonishes even the most seasoned physicians. Fevered breaths soften into steady ones. Pain that once gripped patients with quiet desperation now releases its hold more readily. Nurses who have spent years bracing themselves for the worst now find moments of relief they never thought possible. In the gentle glow of late-night wards, the sound of coughing softens, replaced by the calmer rhythm of restful sleep. These small transformations ripple through the corridors of healing, carried gently from bedside to bedside. As more researchers build upon Fleming's early observations, the mold's power becomes clearer, and its potential expands. Teams refine the compound, test new methods of purification, and discover ways to produce it in quantities once unimaginable. The work still requires patience and humility, but each breakthrough brings a sense of hope that mirrors the soft glow that once rested on the original dish. Journals publish findings that spread from one corner of the scientific world to another, and soon, the quiet halo discovered by chance begins to touch countries far beyond London. It moves through letters, conferences, shared samples, and whispered conversations between researchers who recognize its promise. Time gathers around these exchanges, weaving together the efforts of countless hands into a tapestry of collaboration. The memory of Fleming's first small discovery begins to take on a life of its own. In laboratories, students learn about the mold and the clearing it created, tracing its outline with their fingers as if following the path of a gentle wave. They imagine the moment when Fleming first noticed the strange pattern, envisioning the soft morning light touching the plate, the faint smell of dust settling after days of absence, the quiet stir of curiosity that grew within him. The story becomes a reminder that great change can begin in moments of stillness, that humility and attention can open doors that force alone cannot. It becomes part of the collective memory of science, carried with reverence and retold with each new generation. Meanwhile, families around the world begin to experience the unfolding impact of the discovery without knowing its full history. A child with a deep infection recovers more quickly than expected. A mother's fever breaks after days of worry. A factory worker's wound, once feared to be life-threatening, heals with newfound ease. These small miracles accumulate quietly, forming patterns of relief that echo across nations. They do not appear in headlines or monuments, but in the soft gratitude shared at kitchen tables, in letters written to loved ones, in the peaceful breaths of those who lie healing beneath warm blankets. Time gathers these moments like scattered embers, fanning them slowly into a gentle flame that glows wherever the mold is a gift, as who said. Fleming, now older, watches these developments with a kind of quiet amazement. He is not one to seek praise or recognition. Instead, he observes the world's response with the same calm presence that guided him years earlier. He reads reports of successful treatments, listens to colleagues describe the compound's effects, and receives letters from physicians who express their gratitude for his early work. He feels the weight of these acknowledgments, not as accolades, but as reminders of how far a small observation can travel when nurtured with care. His legacy begins to form around him like a soft halo, much like the one that first appeared on the plate. It grows not from grand gestures, but from the steady unfolding of hope. Even as the world continues to advance, Fleming's laboratory remains a humble space, touched by the familiar sense of paper, ink, and gentle chemical traces. The benches showed the marks of years spent in curiosity and perseverance. The window still overlooks the bustling street, where he once paused to watch the rhythm of life unfold. Time has draped itself softly across these surfaces, honoring the quiet moments that sparked a revolution. In this room, the memory of discovery lingers like a warm presence, woven into the very grain of the wooden tables and the gentle dust that settles in its corners. As the day's work settles into evening across the world, time gathers around the memory of these early years with deep reverence. The halo that once shone faintly in the soft morning light now echoes through countless stories of healing, threading itself into the fabric of human history. The world has been reshaped by a discovery born from accident, patience, and humble observation. Yet its greatest gift lies not only in what it changed, but in what it taught, that even the smallest moments can hold the beginnings of a legacy that grows quietly across generations. As we move toward the final block, the whisper of this legacy continues to drift through time, preparing the way for reflection on the echoes that still shape our world today. As time stretches gently toward the present, the discovery that began in the quiet corners of Fleming's laboratory continues to echo softly across the world. Penicillin, once nothing more than a fragile halo around a patch of mold, has become a guardian woven into the fabric of modern life. Its presence is often invisible, yet its influence is unmistakable. It moves silently through hospitals, clinics, and homes, easing fevers, calming inflammation, and restoring strength to those who need it most. In every corner of the world where healing unfolds, a small part of that moment in Fleming's laboratory whispers beneath the surface, reminding us that even the most delicate beginnings can grow into something powerful and enduring. Time has carried this whisper through generations, turning it into a story of resilience and quiet transformation. In hospitals illuminated by soft evening light, the echoes of Penicillin's legacy ripple through the gentle hum of modern medicine. Doctors move calmly through hallways with tools and knowledge unimaginable in Fleming's time. Yet many of their advances trace their roots back to the mold that once grew unnoticed in a forgotten dish. Patients rest beneath warm blankets as monitors record their steady heartbeat, their breaths smooth and unlabored, thanks to treatments that originated from Fleming's early discovery. Nurses adjust pillows, offer water, and share comforting words, their actions supported by medications that quietly prevent infection from taking hold. The subtle presence of penicillin is felt not in dramatic declarations, but in the quiet sighs of relief, the peaceful rise and fall of calm breathing, and the returning strength in hands once too weak to lift. Beyond hospital walls, the legacy continues in the daily lives of families who may never know the full story behind the medicine that helped their loved ones recover. A child runs through a sunlit garden, unaware that, decades earlier, an infection like hers would have carried a far heavier weight. A gardener tends to her flowers, the soil cooled beneath her fingertips, healed from a wound that might once have threatened her life. A traveler breathes deeply after recovering from an illness that generations before would have spread unchecked. These quiet victories, woven into countless ordinary days, form the true tapestry of penicillin's impact. They whisper through the laughter of children, the conversations shared at dinner tables, and the peaceful rest that comes after illness fades away. As the world continues to evolve, researchers build upon Fleming's work with tools of incredible precision. They explore new ways to understand bacteria, new medicines to outpace resistance, new treatments to protect future generations. Laboratories now glow with advanced machinery, yet within them echoes the humble beginnings of modern antibiotics. Scientists still pause over Petri dishes, still watch bacteria spread, still observe the boundaries where life yields to something more powerful. In those moments of quiet observation, Fleming's spirit of curiosity lingers, a reminder that discovery thrives not only in technology, but in attention, patience, and the willingness to look closely at things others might overlook. Fleming himself remains a soft presence in the memory of the scientific world, a man whose humility shaped his legacy as much as his discovery. He did not see himself as a hero or a visionary. He simply followed a thread of curiosity that the world placed gently before him. His story has become a quiet lesson passed from teacher to student, from mentor to apprentice. That greatness often begins with noticing something small, something fragile, something easy to discard. His life reminds us that our biggest contributions may come not from moments of certainty, but from moments when we choose to listen to what the world is quietly trying to show us. With every passing year, the echoes of penicillin's discovery continue to whisper through hospitals, homes, classrooms, and laboratories across the globe. They whisper in the relief of a parent watching their child recover. They whisper in the gratitude of someone whose strength returns after days of fear. They whisper in the gentle hum of evening wards and in the calm breath of patients finally able to sleep. These echoes become part of the world's collective memory, blended into the rhythm of life so seamlessly that many never realize how deeply they are connected to a moment that unfolded more than a century ago. As the night settles around us now, let your thoughts drift toward the simple truth. At the heart of this story, a forgotten dish, a quiet room, a patient mind, and a moment of chance became a turning point for humanity. The mold that grew in silence became a gift carried through time, a reminder that the world often changes, not with thunder but with whispers. The echoes of that whisper still surround us, offering comfort, protection, and hope in ways we feel every day, even if we do not always notice. As our journey through this story draws to a gentle close, breathe slowly and allow the soft light of this legacy to settle within you. The discovery of penicillin continues to ripple through the world with a calm, enduring grace, reminding us that even the smallest moments can shape the course of history. And now, as you prepare to drift into rest, let the echoes continue to whisper softly, guiding you toward a peaceful sleep wrapped in the knowledge that healing often begins in the quietest places. As our journey through the discovery of penicillin comes to a gentle close, allow yourself to settle deeper into the calm that surrounds you. The story we followed tonight began in a quiet room, with a forgotten dish and a soft whisper of possibility, and now it rests within you like a warm, steady glow. Feel your breath become slower as you picture the empty laboratory at dusk, the benches bathed in the soft amber light of evening, and the shelves lined with the quiet seeds of a revolution that still echoes across the world. In that stillness, imagine the mold resting peacefully on its glass plate, unaware of the millions of lives it will someday touch. Let that sense of humble wonder drift through your thoughts, easing them into a gentler rhythm. Close your eyes, if you have not already, and allow the subtle essence of this night to settle within you like a comforting blanket. The world often moves quickly, rushing past small details, But this story reminds us that sometimes the greatest transformations begin in silence, in patience, in the quiet noticing of things others might overlook. Breathe in the soft awareness that discovery does not always roar. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, carried on a moment of calm observation, and breathe out any tension that remains, releasing it slowly as the night wraps around you like a gentle embrace. You are safe here, resting in the space between past and present, where the glow of history meets the softness of dreams. If you would like, share where in the world or in time you are listening from. I read every comment with care, and your presence in this small corner of the night means more than you know. If you wish to return for another journey told softly through the pages of history, you are welcome to follow the channel and wander with me again. There will always be a warm seat waiting for you. Another quiet story, another night where your mind can drift freely into sleep while learning something beautiful along the way. As the final moments of this story settle into silence, let the gentle echoes of Penicillin's legacy guide you toward rest. Feel the calm spread through your chest, your shoulders, your hands, until your entire body is wrapped in a soothing stillness. Let the rise and fall of your breath become slower, softer, as though time itself is pausing to give you space to dream. The world outside fades into quiet. The worries of the day loosen their grip, and the night welcomes you with open arms. Thank you for spending this time with me, for walking through quiet laboratories, hushed hospital corridors, and the soft unfolding of a discovery that changed the course of human life. Now, let your thoughts drift like a leaf floating on gentle water. Allow the story to fade into a warm glow at the edge of your awareness. Let the night carry you, let the quiet soothe you, and let yourself drift into dreams. Good night, and may peace follow you into your rest.